Coffee with the Editor is proudly brought to you by IRZ and the Railway Safety Regulator, RSR.
Richard, thank you very much for joining me for an impromptu coffee with the Editor here at Rail Safety Regulator's annual rail conference. Richard, you're with Prasa down here in the Cape. What is your role?
I'm the regional manager for Metrorail in the Western Cape, responsible for the train operations within the Western Cape, the suburban rail network. So that's been my role for the past 5 years. But obviously I've been with the organization for the past 25 years and in different roles. But currently I'm in the Western Cape heading the region. Yeah.
Tough business to be in at the moment, I think.
Currently, definitely, a lot of challenges. And those challenges have also evolved and also changed priority. And I think, initially it was an issue of dealing with old and outdated infrastructure, old rolling stock. But I think that those challenges have been exacerbated, also by external factors. And a lot of those factors has got to do with the issue of, in particular, cable theft, vandalism of our assets, in particular signal equipment, as well as the train itself. And then obviously the Western Cape has also had, the exceptional issue of having to deal with the deliberate torching of trains.
Vandalism
as well over the past, 3-4 years. But we've put a number of interventions in place to deal with that. And we're beginning to see the results of those interventions.
So you've got a big signalling project taking place here in the Western Cape?
Yeah, the signalling project has been running now probably for the past four years. If I look at the issue of conceptual design, where we now very deep into the implementation phase. And it's obviously part of Prasa's modernization program, which is 172 billion, over a 10-year period. Cape Town will benefit to the tune of just over 9 billion. The signalling project is about just over 2 billion of that. And linked to the signalling program is also the nerve center from which all our trains will be operated, and we'll be migrating our old center into this new state-of-the-art nerve center, which is part of the signalling program.
So that'd be quite similar to what we have up in Gauteng?
Quite similar, but I think the difference to Cape Town is we have been operating the bigger part of our network under signalling. So for us it's an upgrade, where in Gauteng it was more of a manual operation, and signalling sort of being introduced into the network. So for us it's an upgrade of the system. And with the signalling program, obviously we've also looked at dealing with some of the other challenges that we've been having, because our performance have been heavily impacted due to asset-related crime, theft and vandalism of particular copper cable, which is key for our signalling equipment. So what we've done with the design was obviously to design a lot of that attractiveness and value for scrap out of the system. We've removed a lot of the trackside equipment, as well as we also, burying a lot of or most of the cabling underground as well. And that's just part of the interventions we've done to ensure we've got a system which is reliable, on which we can operate our train service, and which is also safe.
So obviously there's quite a bit of, from a commuter's perspective, going, oh, it's not reliable, it's not safe. When will it become reliable and become safe, or more reliable, more safe? What is the time frame?
Look, in order to respond to that, we obviously need to look at what are the issues facing us, and why have the performance been declining to the levels which we are seeing in the system today. And I've touched on it earlier. It had to do obviously with the age of infrastructure and rolling stock, lack of investment. But that's being addressed with the modernization program. But then of which the signalling, which we just discussed, is part of the rollout of the new fleet. I'm excited to be, we basically at the cusp of rolling out a fleet of about 8 new train sets in the Western Cape.
That's very exciting because those are the new Prasa trains.
That-
made
that-
in
that's
South
correct.
Africa.
We've got currently 2, which was launched by the President at the beginning of this year, which we brought from Gauteng to Cape Town to start the trial operations in preparation for rolling out and implementing commercial services. We're working closely with the Rail Safety Regulator to obviously ensure that we comply with all the requirements in order to operate the new trains safely. Those plans are going well.
Okay.
And we are looking forward, to implement that. And in the next, couple of months, we would like to obviously start operating those new trains if all goes well with our plan for implementation.
Expanding the network here in the Cape, is that on the cards?
I think we must understand that as Metrorail, we, in terms of the Legal Succession Act, we are required to provide services.
Okay.
But you have a situation, or in terms of the legislation, the municipality still is the planning authority for transport. So obviously we work very closely with the City of Cape Town in terms of what expansion requirements and network planning from a transport perspective need to be. How do we reprioritize? And in terms of the ITPN of the City of Cape Town, we're looking at those projects. The priority project at the moment is the Blue Downs Rail Link, where we basically will be linking people from the Metro Southeast, which is Khayelitsha, to Belleville via the Blackheath area. And that's an exciting project for us. We've just completed the feasibility study. And Prasa is committed to that future expansion, at the moment, and working with all the role players. But we are quite, excited that with the relationship that we've got with the city and with the province, they've made the bold statement to say that rail is the backbone of public transport within the Western Cape. And if that principle is agreed to, then it makes it so much easier in terms of the mix of transport, in terms of public transport that we need to introduce. We've also identified other corridors where potentially, rail should probably, perform a bigger sort of operation and be fed into it. And if I'm particularly looking at the Atlantis area, the development that has gone through Dunoon into Atlantis on the west coast, that's something that we are looking at together with the city as well. There are other exciting and more sort of ambitious projects like the Airport Rail Link, which is part of the planning. Those are exciting projects. But
what's the time frame on that?
no, look, that's always been in our plans. But obviously the priority at this stage is obviously not that high.
Yeah.
The priority for us.
Have you landed at Cape Town International Airport and tried to get to the city of Cape Town?
Well, it's a nightmare, and I think we understand that even while you have dedicated bus lanes, it's not solving the problem at the moment.
No,
because
you
just
need
to
a
police, so you need a rail link, and I think those are the excited projects that we need to be looking into and focusing on, and probably seeing how do we make those type of projects a reality sooner. But for now, I think there are more urgent, challenges that we need to fix within the rail system. We first of all need to ensure that we operate the rail system safely, and that's why we are here. And I think the statistics, it's quite alarming. But I also think when we compare, we must also understand context. And we must then look at and really identify what are the underlying issues, why we have some of the challenges. And I think there's an opportunity to also say, why are certain things working maybe in Gauteng, and in Cape Town it's different. How do we also learn, from each other in terms of regions? And analyzing the data, working with the Rail Safety Regulator, provides us that opportunity to do that benchmarking, and to be able to say, look at what worked in the system, and how do we roll out and build on that. But we committed to ensuring that we operate a safe system, and therefore at the heart of that and key to that is the successful implementation of the modernization project. Signaling, the key issue for signaling is to make sure we've got a safe operating tunnel in which we operate trains. The safety features of the new system, it's world class. The safety features of the new trains that we'll be bringing in, we're already operating them in Gauteng. Those are world class, and it's all in our efforts and in part of our strategies, rolling out, obviously government program to ensure that we operate an efficient rail system, which gives, commuters a commute of where they can commute with a bit more integrity and with trust, in the system, and especially given the landscape of South Africa, given the legacy where we come from, it's important that the transport for the masses must work efficiently, and it's the most affordable and convenient transport, if things work. And for me, and I will, and nobody can take that away from us. I will always reflect on the collaborative and collective efforts we put together for 2010 during the World Cup. And whilst transport was probably one of the biggest concerns and risk to our World Cup bid, it was actually the game changer. And I can tell you, in terms of rail, 2.1 million commuters were moved to the matches and fan parks, and out of that 1.2 million, 1.01 was in the Western Cape, given the location of the stadium, without incident, without people being late for a match, which shows you just 10 years down the line we were able to combine efforts, align projects, and if we can just learn from that, we can implement this very successful modernization program. We need to work, closer with, other operators, like for instance, Transnet, and I think it's an exciting time within the rail space, within the transport space for South Africa. We've got a factory building new trains, and it's a Prasa project. And it's revitalizing and changing the face of of rolling stock manufacturing within the Western Cape, within the country, I mean. And obviously, it supports government's initiatives in terms of job creation, and in the end it will stimulate the economy of the country
and give you the assets that you need in order to be safe and reliable.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Richard, thank you very much for your time.